We thank you for joining us today and being part of this session, and we hope that everyone, depending on which stage of the application process you are in, will be able to benefit in one way or the other. So to start us off, I will ask Terry to open with a word of prayer. Then I will give the leaders of Kesid at least 1 minute each to introduce themselves. And then I will hand it over to Lynne Ombati, who will be moderating today's session. Thank you. Over to you, Terry.
Thank you, Jimmy. My name is Teresa Ombewa. I serve as the administrative coordinator for Kesid, and we are happy for you guys to join us. And I'll just take this moment to open the session with a word of prayer. So let us pray. Mighty and everlasting Father, we thank you, not just for what you've done, but for who you are. Jehovah, we thank you for this moment that we get to share, that we get to talk about the application process. And I'm praying that you go ahead of each and every applicant who is looking to put the application out there, Jehovah, that they're able to get as many nuggets from this session, Jehovah, they can positively use to make the applications better, Jehovah. We pray that you go ahead of them, and even the speakers tonight, Jehovah, may you use them. May you give them the words. May you give them the wisdom, even as they fill us in. Jehovah, we honor you and we welcome you even in this meeting, Jehovah. May you watch over us and may you be with us tonight. And may this session be fruitful, and everything that gets to be said here be in your honor. In Jesus' name I pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Welcome, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the session.
All right. So I would ask the Kesid leaders to introduce themselves. My name is Jimmy Ochieng. I'm the president. And I would ask the others to also introduce themselves. And then once they are done, Lynne can introduce herself and then moderate the session. Thank you. Sheila?
Hello everyone. My name is Sheila Jerono. I am a Ph.D. candidate at North Carolina A&T University, Department of Mechanical Engineering, and I'm one of the Kesid student leaders. Welcome everybody. It will be a very informative meeting. Thank you.
John?
Yes, good evening. My name is J.K. Njenga. I'm a doctoral student at Ball State University, studying music choral conducting. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for the letter for our president and also for our speakers for today. And welcome to a very informative session. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Lynne.
Thank you, Jimmy. Hello, everyone. My name is Lynne Ombati. I am a second-year graduate student at Indiana University, Bloomington, studying arts administration. And for Kesid specifically, I'm the visual content manager. So anything optics related that you see in terms of marketing for Kesid. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jimmy, for the introduction. From wherever you're joining us, I know some of you have had to wake up early back home in Kenya. You know, it's around 4 a.m. Thank you for joining us nonetheless. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. This is a continuation of our series. So we've been having a series going on, the do's, don'ts, and everything in between. So just the chronicles of the experiences we have as Kenyan students in the diaspora. And the last session we had, which was in October, covered topics around what to do next. After school, should you apply for another program? Should you look for work? And some of the key points that were talked about is that all of our experiences are very different and our paths will look different for all of us. We also talked about the value of networking and mentorship in the process to receive guidance and keeping your options open as far as is possible. So even as you transition between stages, having your plan A, your plan B, and just being diligent about it. So doing your due diligence. We discovered Google is your friend. I know it sounds cliche, but a lot of the research, sometimes we ask questions for things we can actually find out on our own. So due diligence was also really talked about. So that said, today's session is about graduate school applications, and it's application season in a lot of universities. The deadlines are approaching, so it felt like this would be a good time to talk about this. And the two speakers we have for today are very renowned professionals in their fields, and I will go ahead to introduce them, and I'll lead us straight into the session. So first we have Dr. Patrick Ochieng. He is the chair and associate professor of chemistry and biochemistry at Oakwood University. This is in Huntsville, Alabama, I believe, and he will be taking us through this session. We also have our very own Professor Jerono Rotich, our mother here. She wears very many hats. She will tell us more, but she is the CEO and founder of Kesid, and it's something she's very passionate about. And she's also very passionate about mentorship, as some of you would know. Here at Indiana University Bloomington, she is also the Associate Dean for Organizational Climate, Inclusion, and Belonging. It's a mouthful, so I'm using reference for that, but that is the capacity in which she serves here at IU. So with that, I'd like to lead us into the session itself, and we will have time for questions and answers. Professor Jerono and Dr. Ochieng will just give us a summary on the key points to be thinking about. I will give some questions, and then there'll be the opportunity for questions. Feel free to use the chat box in the meantime. So to Dr. Ochieng, I believe you could go first. Could you please share with us your academic background and your application experience throughout your different stages of your academics? And you can also share with us what was most helpful for your applications and what are some of the mistakes you might have made in that process.
Okay, thank you so much, Lynn and Professor Jerono and all the office bearers for Kesid for organizing such a wonderful opportunity for not just for us, but also for aspiring students and just for our community, because this opportunity, in my opinion, I think it has never existed before. So I am very, very impressed by this community of scholars and people from Kenyans from around the world who are pushing this. And I want to say I'm proud to be part of this. So just like you've been told, my name is Patrick Ochieng. And just to give you a quick snapshot of where I'm coming from. So in 2001, I graduated from Egerton University with a degree in Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and Biochemistry. So after graduating from Egerton, I really did not know what I wanted to do. One thing I knew for sure is I wanted to make an impact. How, I did not know. So, like you, after graduating, you go out there looking for jobs. So I was very excited. I thought I was a very smart person, and I would just walk into GlaxoSmithKline or any of these companies, and they will tell me, you will be the manager. Okay, I was extremely disappointed, because the reality even at that time is that, okay, it wasn't as easy to get a job. So I ended up doing an internship after graduating with a company called Crown Badger Paints. If you for those who are in Kenya, their logo is, if you like it, crown it. So I found myself there as just mixing paints, and I was asking myself, but I thought I was a biochemist. I knew I was going to get into all these big positions. What just happened? Okay, the reality checked in, and I think I'm grateful that I started from a humble position. In fact, maybe let me just share this. Many times you will be pushed to start from a humble position. Many times when we graduate or we come from those institutions, we are very arrogant. We think that we are the smartest people who the universities has produced. Then you go there, they tell you, no, that's you have to start. So I started from the very bottom. And it was in that environment that I found very talented Kenyans are actually people who are working there. They were equally smart. But we came up with a plan and they say, uh, my allowance was 2,000 shillings. I'm a graduate getting this money. So we came up with a plan and said, okay, we are going to apply and see what the future has for us. So that's how we ended up applying. So I applied. I did application to 3 institutions, one in the UK, another one in Australia, and the third one was Western Michigan University, which is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And then I was able to be accepted. And not only was I was accepted with full scholarship or full funding, what I would call graduate assistantship. And then I came into Western Michigan, did a master's in chemistry, biochemistry, finished. And again, I thought, oh, I am on top of the world. So any school that I apply to cannot reject me. Like, I have done all this work. Okay, here was my shocker. I did apply and all the schools rejected me. And I went back to the drawing board. I said, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, but then I learned from the process. Then, I took an OPT 1 year. Then the following year, I did apply. And then I got many acceptances. I ended up getting into Michigan State University, where I did 2 PhDs, one in biochemistry, molecular biology, another one in quantitative biology. Graduated after 8 years. Throughout the 8 years, I had full scholarship. I was just being paid to go to school. And then later I got a job in Huntsville, Alabama as an assistant professor. Where I have been for the last 10 years. So I rose through the ranks from assistant professor to associate professor, and then also became the chair of the department. So here I am looking back 20 years later. I can only say thank God. And it's been a lot of sacrifices, a lot of work, but I just want to encourage each and every one of you that everything is possible. Okay. So I guess maybe that's a long answer to your question, but I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Ochieng. It's very interesting. A winding path, and you're here nonetheless. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
We'll definitely ask more questions about that. Over to you, Professor Jerono.
All right. Good evening. How's everyone doing? All right. So I started back and went to school in Nairobi, and I went to KU, Kenyatta University. After I graduated from KU, I taught I was a teacher and a coach at Kenya Science at Singora Girls. Those of you were all the runners are. So I was teaching and coaching at Singora Girls, where I was coaching track and field, team handball, basketball, all the good stuff. And then while I was there, one of the sisters of a one of our students came to visit our sister who was a runner at Singora Girls. So she was one of my athletes. So that's when we connected. She was a professor at SUNY Brockport. Her name is Professor Ross Tebiator Thompson. I had no idea what America was all about. And that the reason I'm sharing this is because that really inspired me. The fact that she reached out to me and gave me that opportunity has really inspired me to do what I'm doing for Kesid, because if it wasn't for her, I had no clue what the United States was. I remember my friend, who is my village mate, a good friend of mine. He's a PS, Dr. Kipto. He's a PS for finance. So we grew up together. And I remember when we were at home, Chris will come over and say, hey, we're going to study for TOEFL. I'm like, Chris, what are you talking about? What is TOEFL? Where is it going to take me? So I didn't, he would bring us papers and say, I'm studying for TOEFL, we'll meet together and study. I'm like, Chris, I'm not going to the US. I don't think there's any pathway for me. But anyway, long story short, because he's still saying I'm the, so those are people who really inspired me to think about the US, to study, to do this TOEFL thing. But I had no clue how I was going to make it. So anyway, cut the story short, I was at Singora Girls, and this professor was very impressed with what I was doing with the students. So she approached me. She said, would you like to go to the US? I'm like, I never thought about it, but I don't know how to do that. So those days she gave me a paper application. And I kept it, and I went back to my friend P.S. Kipto and said, hey, where is the TOEFL papers? Bring those TOEFL now, I can study for it. So I studied. As I was preparing for that, I was transferred to be a lecturer at Kenya Science Teachers College. So I lectured at Kenya Science Teachers College, and in the process, that's when I got my acceptance to come to SUNY Brockport to do my master's. So that's how I ended up here. Went to SUNY Brockport, graduated, went to UNC Greensboro, graduated with my doctorate, and I taught at North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central. I was in North Carolina for 25 years. But the key thing to my experience is you see there are people in my pathway who still continue to be my mentors. Professor Rotich Thompson, who is now a professor at Athens University in Georgia, and then my good friend P.S. Dr. Kipto, who was always he was very ambitious, and he made all of us. So I came to the U.S., and actually as a result of that, if you look at my Elgeyo Marakwet, my village, I think we have the most Ph.D.s, I would say, in the entire county. We have the most people from my village, from my area, Kapkoi. We have P.S. Kipto, we have who have actually got their PhDs. In fact, the women are leading with their PhDs in my area. And we have the most number of students who have come as a result of myself. So every time I brought a student, I said, hey, don't leave anybody behind. Before the end of the year, I want you to facilitate somebody. So I can proudly say that we are so many of us from our area in the United States, in Canada, in Australia. And that's really what inspired me. Somebody extended their hand to me. Somebody opened an opportunity for me, which I never dreamt about. And that is why we do what we do with Professor Ochieng. Is we didn't have those opportunities when we came here. So we're just here to support, to pay forward. My mission for doing this is to pay forward and to pay back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jerono. That's very inspiring, the power of being mentored and then passing it forward to others. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, maybe just to have the basics out of the way, maybe one of you could talk to us about the general requirements in most grad school applications. I know you've mentioned something like TOEFL. Some people may not know what that is. So maybe just run us through a list of what the general application requirements are.
We'll let Professor Ochieng. Prof, you had a presentation, right?
Yeah. I do have something to share.
So go ahead. I have all my notes. I'll be checking off what you've mentioned and what you've not. So that way.
Okay, good. So let me quickly share. So Teresa and everyone, thank you for that question. I think this is a very important question. How I decided to approach this is, I guess I asked myself the question. The question that I asked myself is, what value can I add as a professor to this conversation? Because you see, one of the things that most of us are aware of is, if you want to go to graduate school, you just go and Google, and you get all the information is all out there. But I wanted to approach it from more of something that I wish I knew, right? It's to me, I am starting from the answer. Okay, so now the answer, then I'll go to the question. I am starting from the answer that many of us don't know, because if you know the answer, you know what to prepare. So the answer that many of the students don't have is, there's something that you as an individual can control. What you can control is how strong of an application you can put. What you cannot control is the acceptance rate, or the competition, or the people who are applying. You have no control over that. So at least you are better off starting to think of what you can control. And I thought I need to bring this as an insider. someone who is inside analyzing students' application. One thing we learn to ask, or we never interrogate, is what's the rubric? After I have submitted the application, what are these people going to look for? And I think that is really an important part that most students don't really think about. Because if you know the rubric, then you're going to tailor-make your application just based on the rubric. So here's an example of a rubric that I got. Okay, so all of you can see this is holistic admission rubric. Actually, you can get it online. Guess what? From ETS, right? So that rubric is there. What many institutions, and actually I have one for Indiana University that I can also share with you just to see what are these people looking for? So when you are starting your application, you know that your application is in tandem. Okay, so you can get this online. What's the basic criteria? Okay, you need letters of recommendation. You need GPA. You need personal statement. You need all these things. But did you know that these things are graded? There's a grade that is allocated for this, and they are looking, for example, this is an example. This is a total of 25. So now let's look at research, letters of recommendation, work experience. What are they really looking at? Okay, so now let's try to expand this even further, right? Okay, so when they say research, 5 points, what can you do to really get those 5 points? Because it's either you're going to get 0 in that category or something in between or 5. So if you look at research here, they're saying if you have at least 3-year research and 1 year of some internship, okay, at least 1 year of undergraduate research and internship, you get 3 points. If you have 1 year of undergraduate research alone, you get 2 points. If you have less than 1 year, you get 0 point. So you can start to see that you are going through the process and you have no research experience. You are fighting the headwinds, okay? Okay, then get to the letters of recommendation. Many of you just say, okay, you meet somebody, can you write me a letter of recommendation? You really never understand how important that is. So for the maximum of 3 points, if you got very strong letters, then you get all the 3 points. Moderately strong, you get 2. And then below average, then there are some letters that have red flags. So you want to know who writes. You want to be sure whoever writes your letter is not spoiling for you, because they might actually spoil for you. In other words, let me just tell you that there is an answer out there. There's a rubric that all you need to know is to look at it and tailor your application towards the rubric. Once you do that, you can actually grade yourself. After grading yourself, so there is the GPA. Some people ask, okay, what GPA do I need? You see how they, okay, 3.7 to 4, you have a 4, maximum 4. You have a GPA of 3.0 to that, you have a 1. Okay, maybe you are trying to apply and you have a GPA of what? You have a GPA of 2.5. I'm not saying 2.5 cannot be accepted, but you really have to compensate the points that you are going to lose by something else so significantly so that the net effect is what? Is strong. Some people might want to ask, do I need GRE? Okay, look in the rubric, actually they grade GRE. They look at, if you have GRE, analytical writing work, they have that grade. And then after they have computed everything, they now have, they cluster them into categories. They say if you have 20 to 25, strongly admit. 19 to 17, admit. 14 to 16, probably admit. If you are below 10, you are dead on arrival. Probably deny or completely deny. So you can see how you perform in this rubric is going to inform whether or not you get admitted. And do you know, many of us really don't know this because we just put in our application and hope and pray that a miracle happens. Sometimes the miracle happens, sometimes it doesn't. But if you really work towards this, then it's going to be helpful. So that's just a generic rubric. So I got one from, actually, this is Indiana University, which the Department of Brain and Psychological Sciences and Brain Sciences, this is what they use. Very similar, right? You see, they are looking at research experience. If it is exceptional with evidence, so they probably have taken that rubric and using it to suit their purposes. So research experience is gonna give you good points. And remember, in that committee, there are like 4 or 5 people in the committee. So everybody is grading you, and then they will get an average, okay? So that's how they come to the letters of recommendation. Did you see that? Very strong versus moderately strong versus mixed letters, below average. That is gonna give you points depending on what you have. Some of them will include previous coursework that may be relevant. I think I'm receiving an echo from somewhere. Okay, coursework that might be relevant. Maybe some of them will put it in there. Personal statement or statement of purpose. And I need to pause here and say, we are in the generation of artificial intelligence. Some of us will be tempted to just go to ChatGPT and have ChatGPT write your personal statement. Do you know what? All these things, before they come, we screen them for plagiarism. We screen them for AI, whether you have used AI. And the moment we see that, that's a red flag. Your application is dead on arrival, okay? So I just want to encourage you that the reason it's called personal statement is you want to make it personal as possible, okay? Those experiences that you've gone through that motivate you in a certain area, okay? Okay, and then in some areas like here, barriers and challenges. What barriers have you gone through? If they can read that and see that, okay, you've gone through significant challenges and you've overcome, they assess that in some of the cases. Mentorship, have you been involved in mentorship, leadership? Those sometimes will come into play. So I will share with you all these things. And there's also another even more comprehensive from Wayne State University, which now goes through the details, all these details. So I won't bore you with, because it's just the same things, but they are using this for scoring purposes. And I just wanted to bring this because I thought this is usually the missing piece. I don't think the problem for many applicants is not knowing what the requirements are. I can run you through, everybody knows the requirements. I mean, transcripts, you need to have your transcripts translated, okay? GPA, all this, everybody knows the requirements. What people don't know is, how should I package my application so that when I go there, I can control for my application. I cannot control because in many times you are competing against many applicants. And if you can make your application as succinct as possible and as close to the rubric as possible, that will win you a seat on the table. So I think I will let Professor Jerono share what she has, but I still have additional information just in case you need more, okay? I do have something that I prepared in form of a PowerPoint. So at this time, I will stop the sharing just to let Professor Jerono chime in.
Great. Thank you so much, Prof. What I can add is I'm glad you pulled out the rubrics. So one of the things that, like you said, is to summarize is clarify your goals. What is it that define your academic? What is your career goals, and how will school help you? So before you even apply, you need to make sure that you have your vision and your goals. What is it that you want to accomplish? Don't just go into graduate school blindly. So clarify your goals and your mission and write it down. Because when we review, like you said, Dr. Ochieng has been a chair, he's a chair, I've been a chair, and we are at the very end. Actually, we have a committee that reviews, and we have a big say on, the final decisions. Research your programs thoroughly. Before you apply, do research on what. So once you know your goals, your vision, what is it that you want to do, then research your programs, research your goals, and see what you want to do. Many a times we get people saying, hey, I'm looking for a school in this. We don't really know what you're interested in. So do your research. Make sure that what you're applying for aligns with your academic goals and your programs and your vision. So really take time to review, to research, to see what is it that you want to do. Number 3 is reach out to faculty. Once you've identified the institution, you really like Indiana, you really like where, you like North Carolina A&T, reach out. Now you know exactly. Reach out for that department. Professors who are dealing in engineering and mechanical engineering and very specific topics. So reach out to them and say, hey, I'm so and so. I'm interested in this. I'm in the process of applying for this. And then reach out to current students. Like, that's why Kesid is here, so we can share opportunities. I like the fact that you come in and ask questions. So ask current students. We've grown very we continue to grow in numbers in Indiana University because of the networking that we have. People keep asking, hey, what were you doing there? What are some suggestions? So reach out to faculty, reach out to that institution that you've identified, and then reach out to current students. And you can even ask professors, hey, I'm from Kenya. Do you have any students who are in your program that can help me, guide me through the process, or just develop some relationship? They will give you that information. A strong personal statement. I cannot overemphasize that. Your personal statement must be strong. Again, clearly articulate your vision, your goals. Why is it that you want? Why are you the best candidate? You are your own ambassador. Nobody will ever advocate for you like yourself. So if there's anything that you can take away today, you are your own ambassador. How you market yourself, how you set your vision. So do a very strong personal statement, review it, look at it, make sure it clearly articulates your experiences, why you want to do this, and then get, like Dr. Ochieng said, get recommendation letters. Don't just ask anybody. Make sure you're choosing people who know you well, people who can speak for you, people who can speak about your skills, your work ethics, your professional potential, and even people who can give examples, because you don't want people to write general statements. I get a lot of requests from students asking me to write recommendations. Some people have bluntly said, no, I can't. I have nothing to say about you. So make sure you get people who know you very well, get strong recommendation letters. Highlight your relevant experiences. When you're doing that statement of purpose, highlight your relevant experiences, things that would really make you good. And make sure when you highlight your experiences, you're linking them to the program that you're applying for. Prepare for any required exams, be it GRE, GMAT, or any standardized exam. Make sure you prepare and you do well, because most of those, they're used as eliminations, especially when it comes to funding. So when it comes to funding, they may use, they look at different things, but they look at that. Polish your CV or your resume. You all know the difference between a CV and a resume, right? CV is mostly used for graduate applications. It's very detailed. It details all your experiences, all your expertise, things that you've done. So make sure you should be updating your CV every month. You should really get into the habit of updating your CV, updating your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is professional. Update your LinkedIn, update your CV, because people go there and look at that. Keep it updated, polish it, make sure that it highlights your skills, make sure it's very organized, it's up to date, your achievements, your skills, your relevant experiences. Be very, very concise, because when we are reviewing your statement letters, statement of purpose, your CV, your recommendations, we are very busy and we get a lot of applications, or reviewers get a lot of applications. Make sure you're demonstrating that you are a good fit, for the program you're applying it. Demonstrate through your application, your statement, that you're very passionate. People want to see a good fit. People want to see somebody who's very passionate, who will bring in value, who will add some value to the program. So then we're not just out to fill spaces, but we want somebody who can put in value. Be very organized. One of the things I was talking with our graduate director yesterday, and I said, what are some of the major mistakes that students make? She said, people are not very organized. They wait until the last minute. So be very organized. Start doing your schedule. Track your program applications. Make sure you're meeting the deadlines, paying your fees on time. Submit your materials early. I would submit it early so that if there are any mistakes that you make, then they'll always give you feedback to say, hey, we've received the application, but we're missing this and this. So be super organized, meet all the deadlines, make sure you put in everything that is required. I always go above and beyond to provide extra material. Anything that I have, resume, newspaper articles, publications, videos, anything. You remember, you are your own advocate. You are your own ambassador. No one will advocate for you more than your parents or your mother, but so be your own advocate. Make sure you proofread everything that you're submitting. Have somebody else read your stuff before you submit. And then don't rush through the application. Take your time. Like I said, take your time, read it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If there are things that you're stuck, don't be afraid to ask questions. You can email the admissions, they're super good graduate admissions staff and faculty. Email them and say, hey, I have a question, or I'm trying to reach out to this person. So never be afraid of asking questions. People are always here to support. They're ready to help. And then prepare for potential interviews. Most cases now, especially for PhDs, they have interviews. So after they read, so make sure you be prepared that there might be an interview, and prepare for that interview, making sure that you know what you put in your application. Do research on the institution, do research on the program, do research on faculty who are doing that, because most of the times the people who are interviewing you are faculty members who are interested in supporting you. And then for PhDs and masters, remember, most of the funding comes from graduate research. So again, prepare for that, and I will stop there.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much for what you've shared. I think this is a session where we have speakers that not only answer the questions asked, but they anticipate all the questions that will come and cover them. So because of that, I will go straight to what we have in the chat. There's some questions in the chat already, but please keep adding your questions to the chat. Dr. Ochieng, did you want to say something before we proceed to the questions?
Yes, I do. I also do have just to add on to what Professor Jerono so well articulated. I also have just as a matter of FYI, a power, because I knew time would be an issue, so I did prepare a PowerPoint that can actually help highlight some of those things.
Perfect. Go ahead, Prof. Go ahead, Prof. I think that's
okay. So where the questions that you need to ask. So what to consider, like, why do I want to go to grad school? Like Prof so articulately put it. How do I select the right program? What do I need to start applying? Will I need to take those standardized tests like GRE and so on and so forth? So I did prepare something here. So I'll just, like, I don't want to repeat what Prof said. What's your motivation? What impact do you want to make in your profession or in the community? So you have to start thinking of things like that. And this will probably inform your what? Your statement of purpose or personal statement. How do you select the right program and institution? Whether it's a master's or a PhD, consider the length of time and the degree requirements that you need. Determine which institutions offer you your desired program. And then, like I said, there are things you can control. What you can control, please make sure you do it well. What you can't, forget about that, okay? Then choose your schools wisely. And this is really where I thought I wanted to make it more practical. I would recommend, there are, I would say, 3 types of applicants. there is an applicant who is a US citizen applying for graduate school. There is an applicant who is already in the US who maybe is doing a master's and wants to do a PhD. Then there's an applicant who is in Kenya or in Africa somewhere who wants to come to the US. It is much harder if you are from Kenya trying to come to the US. It's much easier for those who are already in the US. So some of these strategies might work for those who are here and as compared to those who are out there. So what I would do is I would make a short list of 5 to 10 schools. Okay. Once you make that short list, then you list. Okay, so I would prepare a spreadsheet, and I tell my mentees this. One of my mentees is here. This is what I tell them. Please make sure that you prepare a spreadsheet, all the requirements for every school. What are the due dates? What are the available scholarships, and so on and so forth. Then I will tell them apply to at least 7 institutions. So one of the mistakes I made in the first, remember I told you that I applied, and there was a time I felt very arrogant because I was, I have all these qualifications. Then I applied to all top schools. Then they all rejected me. What I recommend is apply 2 top ranked schools, maybe in the first tier, 3 middle tier, somewhere in the middle tier, and then what I would say 2 safe schools. What's an example of a safe school? A good example of a safe school, and I don't want to say safe because it's low, it's not quality. Safe because you have less competition there. So for example, an HBCU is a very safe school. So if I knew of an HBCU, if you don't know what an HBCU means, historically Black college and university, if you apply there and you put a good application, more likely than not, you'll be accepted. And then like Prof said, apply early, submit before the deadline. So those are the requirements, like we all know, TOEFL and so on and so forth. And so the checklist, it's there in the internet. You can Google, you can see everything. But I just wanted to add to that voice that you can actually control your application, and by controlling your application, spend time. I hate to say this, but many times I see students who are not, they want to come to graduate school, but they don't want to do what it takes. So you have to spend time, have conversations with people who have been there, and have mentors, people who you can talk to, who can help guide you. Make sure that your material, someone proofreads your material. Most likely someone who is in a position to see any mistakes that you may have made. So I will just stop at that and hopefully address questions that come through.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Ochieng. Thank you for sharing that. This is very helpful. I hope we're all following keenly. I'll go to the chat. I know there's some questions asked there. And if you have any questions, just keep adding them to the chat. So the first question here by Vivian, and I think you had mentioned it, is how to get the rubric.
Yes. I will actually share with you guys. I was trying to see in the chat. I know usually there's how you can share it in the chat, but I can't quite figure it out now because I don't see that button. But I will send it to Lynne and all the leaders. Actually, I have 3 different types, right? So they are comprehensive. Every school, what they do is they just make it suit their needs. And I saw a question, someone asking, there are programs that require you to identify a mentor. In fact, I have a rubric where they have that. They have that in their rubric. If you have identified the mentor and they feel that mentor is a good match, then they give you a higher score. as compared to someone who has not identified. So it's important to know what the institution you are applying to requires, because more likely than not, they will tailor their rubric to match that, so that your job is to make sure that you hit every nail that you need to hit to increase your chances. Thank you.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I think if you'd like to share a file, right next to the chat box, there's a plus sign. And if you tap on plus, you can share a file, Dr. Ochieng, if that helps. But that's okay. We can always circulate it after the meeting. There's another question from Jane. How do you suggest students evaluate their GPA with organizations like WES? I suppose that stands for World Education Service?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I can speak to that is, like we said from the beginning, follow the instructions from the institution. They will give you that link. So again, most institutions would tell you where to send your applications, what organization to do that. And remember, these days, the transcripts have to come directly from your institution. So again, the key thing is don't decide for yourself, and those are the kind of questions, say, hey, what institution do I use? So just follow the instructions provided by their guidance that are very specific.
Yeah, and to add on to what Prof said, we were taught in our generation in Kenya, we were told it's a terrible advice that we were given, that don't follow up, don't ask any questions, don't follow up, don't send any emails, because it will be seen like you are trying to canvass. Oh, that's don't take that advice. In fact, when you ask many questions, keep sending emails to that chair of department or to that director. And you know what you're trying to do? You are trying to stand out. You are trying to make them know who you are. And when people know who you are, that's part of the strategy. When they know who you are, then when they sit at the table, they'll be like, I usually have a conversation with this person. They are very strong. They articulate their sentences well. They will actually vouch for you in that committee. So don't shy away from engaging with any of these guys. Whether it's the chair of the department, just send them an email and ask, and more likely than not, you'll get an answer. I did that when I was applying for PhD. I didn't do it as a master's student because I was coming from Kenya, but because once I came here, I learned the tricks. I engaged, and I believe it is part of that engagement is actually what won me an interview for the position.
Thanks for sharing.
It makes a big difference. I remember even when I was applying for my job. So the other day, let me go back to, so the other day I had a student, they had invited me to go speak to them. It was a pre-med students, and they wanted me to go and give them a keynote speech in the topic. So, but they stopped by my office. That was I was so impressed. I was like, oh my goodness, I'll do anything for you, for this group. I'll do anything. I'll do anything. When I went to the presentation, I made sure I brought a lot of goodies and a lot of that. It made such a huge difference. And I told them, I'm here to support. And then I remember going back to my job after I graduated, there was no opportunity. So I just walked to the chair's office with my resume. I said, hey, I just stopped by here. I graduated. I know you have no positions that have been advertised, but just in case anything comes up, here is my CV. That was it. She called me the next day. She said, wow, you stopped by? She called me and she said, I'm going to make a position for you. And that's how I ended up, and the rest of this is history all the way. So just that personal connections makes a huge difference. That's what those are people, we call them sponsors. They become your sponsor. They speak on your behalf in boardrooms. They said, oh, I know this person. I know this student. So take advantage of that and don't be shy. Yes, go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks for sharing that. I think as Kenyans, we are not used to sharing our bragging points. And American culture, especially, I've seen is very different. So let's bust those myths. And it can be uncomfortable, I will say, but it pays great dividends. So be encouraged. Be encouraged. There's a question that I think has been answered about prospective PhD students and if you're required to first identify a faculty advisor before admission. I I presume it's been talked about. That'll depend on the program you're applying to. So just find out what the specific requirements are from the institutions you're applying to. But if you feel like this question hasn't been answered adequately from the person who asked it, kindly let us know. We'll be on the lookout for that. There's also a question, how do I have my transcript evaluation if I've done my bachelor's or master's abroad? Do I have to do a transcript evaluation if I have done? Yes, so that's a yes.
Yeah. In many
What is abroad? Abroad means what? Abroad means here or Kenya?
Actually, it's a follow-up in Europe specifically. In Europe specifically.
I guess the answer to that question is this. And I think I need to make this distinction. There are people who may have gone to schools even in Kenya that have the American system. That, for example, USIU or Baraton. I know they put their grades in GPA format. Those students usually don't have a problem, because what Americans want to see is, what is this GPA? What does it translate to? Irrespective of where you studied, if your grades are not represented in a GPA format, that is foreign to us, okay? Like I am now putting myself in the shoes of the American who is evaluating it, right? I don't know what second class upper division means. You have to convert it to me in a language that I understand. So that's the reason why they require, irrespective of where it is, as long as it's not saying, it's not giving it in GPA format, please go ahead and make sure that you have it converted. WES is a very credible organization, does it. In fact, I have referred many students to it. But again, as we say, many times even WES will want that they get those transcripts directly from your school, okay? So you just want to make sure that you go through the right process, okay? Good.
Thank you. Thank you for that. There's a question about funding, and I think the broader question could be, even as you apply, how can you increase the chances for funding for your program? And how do you access funding, graduate assistantships? So anything with regard to funding for your program. How do you go about that?
Professor Rotich?
Okay, so the first thing is, like we said, is you want to apply early and meet deadlines, because when they have the applications, they normally consider those early applications because it's a sign of your commitment. So most of those is first come, first serve. So applying early, meeting the deadlines, making sure that your application meets all the requirements. And then in your application, make sure you also demonstrate a very strong academic and research background. So again, it goes back to say a very solid application will do it. Early, make sure your application is really highlighting your accomplishments, your research, your potentials, and the fact that you can link it to some of the professors. Like I said, most of our professors are funding and they're always looking for graduate students, they're looking for postdoc. So those are people who are looking for that. So align it to one or two professors that can really buy into your work. Apply for multiple funding sources. Don't just rely on one. So apply for graduate assistantship. Look at programs like our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So look at different options. And those are the questions. Say I've applied. You can email your contact and say, hey, I've applied for graduate assistantship. Do you have any suggestions of other programs that I can apply to? So apply to multiple funding sources within the school, things like NSF, Fulbright, other professional organizations that support graduate students. We share a lot of those things on Kesid forums. So take advantage of those and apply before and even after you get into the program. Seek assistantships. Make sure you're very clear in that I'm looking for an assistantship or a work study options. There are work study options that could be offered. So asking those questions, network and seek faculty support. I cannot overemphasize that. Network and seek out to them as soon as you're admitted or when you're in the process. That should never stop. As you're preparing to apply, after you've been accepted, as you're preparing to get into the program, and even while you're into the program, you can continue doing that. And then you can also write, somebody says, a strong statement of purpose and funding proposal. Make sure you include that in your application. Leverage fellowships and specific demographic fields. There's a lot of fellowship for different, Melinda Gates, different organizations. So the key thing what we are saying here is do your research. There's so many there are organizations out there that would fund. I think the other day we shared something about the Obama Foundation. There are people actually sharing testaments to say that they've come in. It's a full scholarship. You either go to Chicago, you go to Yale. So there are several of those application programs that we share. We share them very freely. Leverage those and apply for those at the same time. Do not wait. Apply for those at the same time, concurrently when you're applying for that. It's also very critical that you showcase your leadership, your community engagement, your extracurricular activities. You want to show that you are an all-rounded person when you apply. So don't just sit and say, oh, I have this 4.0 GPA, but showcase, again, you are your own ambassador. Market yourself real good, showcasing your accomplishments, your capabilities, your abilities, your potential across the board in research, in teaching, community engagement, in leadership, community participation, things like that. What the students are doing here, it goes a long way. It really looks really good on your resume that you are a leader for an organization. And then research online databases and resources. And you can actually, like Dr. Ochieng says, you can actually keep a table. You can create an organized table of your funding calendar, when they are due, organizations that fund, and you have nothing to lose by reaching out to them. Say, hey, I'm so and so, I'm applying for this NSF. So reach out to them and ask as much as you can. Okay, Dr.
Yes. Yes, and on top of that, those great points, some programs like, and I know this because especially the area that I am in, some programs like chemistry, biochemistry, biology, some programs, they only accept you if they will fund you. And that means that for those programs, it's much competitive. So that's why I was going through the rubric, so that if you can get the most out of those points, if you happen to fall into the strongly admit, you can be guaranteed that you will get funding. Okay, so again, when it gets to funding, they also start to look at the what, at how good is your application. Remember, and I tell students, if all you are giving us is a good grade, then it is gonna be a terrible application. Okay, so an application is not just about grade. Oh, I got a 4.0, but then nothing else to show. You have to be able to be all-rounded so they can see that you have these leadership skills, you have these research skills, you have all these things. You have been in clubs, you have presented in some conferences like we do in KESA. All those things, please make sure that you put it in your CV or in your resume, so that when you are applying, those really boost your resume to the extent that you stand out. So again, funding and the competitiveness of your application, they are directly intertwined. If you don't present a strong application, okay, take it for a second. If it was you, where would you want to put your money? Do you want to put your money to someone who has not even finished the application? The communication is so disjointed. Would you want to put your money there? Absolutely not. So you also want to put your money to where you see promise. So you have to present that promise. And once you present it, money will follow.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Ochieng. I know some questions have been answered in the chat, so just take a look at where you dropped your question and we'll keep going through them. And if you'd like to get the follow-up materials, I encourage you to fill in the survey so that we can share all the information to your email. So if you'd like to receive the materials, please, at the end of the session, fill out the survey. The link is on the chat. There's another question here. I think this might be a simple answer. If there's a difference between a personal statement and a statement of purpose?
I would say yes. It's the emphasis, and actually, you can Google this personal statement, just like the name say. They want to see if you are a good fit for the program, right? So, what is it about you as a person that you need to bring out? Okay, you need to bring out how you have overcome those challenges, how you have, things that have motivated you over the years, things that have inspired you. So you are weaving your personal story into, into how you can be a good fit into the program, whereas a statement of purpose really focuses more on the program versus you as a person, right? So it's just different ways of bringing the information that I can use to assess whether you are a good fit for the program. Professor Jerono might have additional
No,
things.
that's okay. So it depends what if they ask for that, like I said, the statement of purpose is used for graduate students. They're really focusing on your academic goals and your plan. But if they ask you for a statement of purpose
Personal statement.
personal statement, then that means they want more details. So share more details, include personal narratives, use examples to showcase why you're a good fit for that.
Mm.
So if they ask for that, but they add, for me, in my case, I'm like, just put as much as you can. I'd rather put all of them there. And especially now that, remember before, like when students used to do a diversity statement, that those things are not required. Or even when you apply for jobs, you can actually weave into your statement. Nobody will tell you that you can't put in. So if you really want to, give a statement, for example, growing up in Kenya like that, so you're giving more details in that. And the more you include, the better.
Yes. And how you are bringing us shaped you into
Yes.
what you want to. Those are unique stories that you only you can tell. That's why I said if you go and do it on ChatGPT, then you are really putting a nail on your coffin without you knowing, right? Because you have a beautiful story that people want to read, and that beautiful story, weave it into this thing that you are applying to, and how all that is going to fit into the challenges that or the impact that you are going to create in your community and in the society at large. So it's just important to know that. The other thing I wanted to say is realize that there's also word limits. Okay, so sometimes don't make it too long. Sometimes they'll say not more than so many words or more than 2 pages. I would be like, if you are starting to go beyond 2 pages, then your statement of purpose or personal statement is now getting too long. Again, remember, these guys are busy like me and Professor Jerono. They don't have time to sit there, read 5 pages of a statement of purpose.
Lynne, I'm going to add something quick because I think from the feedback that we got last time is we just want to also include the undergrad. So one thing with funding is if you're an undergrad or regardless of where you are, look at the types of funding that are available. Also consider the total cost. So we've had some people who come in, they said, hey, I received 50% of partial funding. Make sure you really factor in, consider the total cost of attendance, because some people think, oh yeah, I got 50%, but that does not include your books, your living expenses, your everything. So look at those and consider, be very diligent and weigh the pros and the cons. Like I said, we've had so many calls for students who come in. They're like, oh, I got 25% funding, so I thought I'll be okay. But that was only towards your tuition. So again, look at those and really make sure you're meeting that. If you are applying for funding, apply for funds that you meet the requirements. Make sure you're checking, is it for citizens? Is it for this? There's a lot of funding. They are funding for left-handed, right-handed, this and this. People are different. So make sure you meet the funding requirements. And then we've had some people talking about loans. People who've been considering loans, or that is a last option. Look at the loan repayment and deferment options. Be very careful that before you get into any loans, before you seek any loans, that you really understand what is going on. I was talking with a student the other day, somebody, and I don't want to be very, but the funding there, what they were required to pay was over $90,000. That's a lot. But you're already stuck. You've already come in. You've already moved here. And all of a sudden you realize that funding, whatever they gave you, is not enough for you to do anything. So look into those things and be very careful with. And ask questions. Like I said, ask questions.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. There's a question here. Could you please talk a little about accommodations, especially if you don't know anyone in the US? I'm not sure if that question makes sense, but one of you could tackle that, please.
Yeah, okay. So I guess the person is asking indirectly, is the school going to accommodate you? The answer is no. You have to look for your own accommodation, or then there are, if you are an undergrad, there are usually dorms where you pay money and they will be glad to accommodate you in their dorms. In some schools like Michigan State, where I went to, they also had accommodation available for graduate students and maybe postdocs and research. They have it available, but again, it's given on first come, first serve. So depending on the institution that you are going to, you need to look around, make sure that you somehow get through your connection. If you can find some people who are there, they can give you more information about what are your accommodation options. It's usually location dependent. So I guess that's not a question that can be answered by a broad brush, because for example, at Western Michigan, where I went to, there was on-campus accommodation. Then another school, there is no on-campus accommodation. You have to look for your own. So it varies from one to the other. You just need to look and check around for your specific institution.
One thing that I'd like to add on that is, and I want to give a lot of kudos to Makobi. Makobi is he does a very good job with connecting students and helping students. Reach out. I actually had a student there that I was very impressed. He was in Kenya. He got into an IU school and he reached out. He said, I've just been accepted. I'll be coming to Indiana in January. So we added him to all the groups. So as soon as you find out that you've been accepted, even call the embassy, reach out to people. The beauty with Kenyans is we are so connected that there are Kenyans in every place, and so reach out to those people and they will guide you. I remember meeting a lot of students here who are new. I was like, how did you get your accommodation? Makobi, you can tell us how you do that. So having those connections, there are people who are a blessing. They will reach out to you. They will connect you. Makobi, you want to add something to that? Because I know you've done an amazing job with that. I always tell them, go to Makobi. He knows where to take you. Sylvester, are you there?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm here. I
How do
don't
you
know.
connect? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just the power of networking, as you said, and just being present in different spaces. Like for instance, the African Studies program, the Neil Marshall Black Culture Center events, and then you hear things. And then sometimes I think you posted something on the WhatsApp chats on like, hey, if you want to do something, if something is less than 5 minutes, do it then, don't wait. So sometimes I can make a note or just send it like, hey, there's this opportunity, and people apply. And somehow you find, even myself, I find opportunities through that, because people do mention, hey, Makobi, I also saw this other thing. And I'm like, wow, yeah, thank you. I also benefit. And I think that it's also in the saying that if you light another candle, yours will not grow dim. So you have many people coming together, and tuendelee kuinuana. Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you, and keep up with the good work.
Yeah, tumesaidika sana, myself included, through
Yeah.
Makobi. Yeah, thank you so much. There's one more question in the chat. If you still have questions, feel free to raise your hand and we can have you unmuted or type it out in the chat. If you have a master's degree in the US, do you have to evaluate your bachelor's degree from Kenya? So that's the question.
Yeah, I would say yes, because you see, most of the graduate schools accept that there are certain requirements that they need from your bachelor's degree, right? So a lot of the times, by the way, in many instances, a master's is more like a transition, right? Transition that you're making between a bachelor's to a PhD. So a lot of the core courses that they need, usually most of the time you did them in your bachelor's. But if most of those core courses you did them in your master's, they might waive that for you, okay? But if they feel like the core courses are still what you did in your bachelor's, they want to know what that means, and it might be important. So I guess this is where you engage with the institution, okay? So just ask the institution, okay, here's my master's, like in our time, when I went to the West thing was not big. Most of the time we could just present our transcripts and they would allow it. But over time, things have changed. So I just want you to ask, just make an ask. Will I need to do this? And then depending on how they answer it, sometimes they are willing to waive certain things if they see that you already have a degree in the US.
Did you want to add to that, Prof?
Yes, I was gonna add something on that I had on my notes here. Yeah, I think Prof has covered it well. That's a very self-explanatory request. That's a self-explanatory. Just talk to your institution, because those are some of the things that could put you off if they do the checklist and they don't have that. You know, I remember the other day I was applying for my job and they still asked for my undergraduate transcript. I was like, what?
Yes.
So they still ask for those things, and so I saved my transcript from West, because they keep asking and I just don't get it, but it's what it is. I just wanted to go talk about something a little bit on the recommendation letters and who you ask for your recommendation letters. Those are really key. I've seen that even now when we're going through different positions, even for tenure promotion. Make sure you get a recommendation from somebody who's very, very familiar with your work ethics, who is familiar with your strengths and your capabilities. Also get somebody who is relevant to your field of study, because we always get people saying, can you give me a recommendation? I'm like, you are an engineer. I am in public health. This doesn't fit. So make sure you get somebody who is relevant to your field. And that goes to say that build those relationships, whatever program you are in, if you're in undergrad, if you're in master's, if you're in PhD, build those relationships with those people, because you will need them. Make sure it's somebody who is supportive of your goals, who is supportive of what you're doing, somebody who is reliable and responsive, somebody who is respected in the field, especially if you're applying for funds. There's some recommendations that you get and they're like, oh, wow, they were recommended by so-and-so. So get somebody who is highly respected in your field. When you're requesting for that recommendation letter, the worst thing is when you have a low, give them plenty of time, give them deadlines, and then provide them. What I don't normally get is give them your updated CV, give them your brief summary of your goals, your statement of purpose, your personal statement. That is very key, because that would help them to write a strong letter. And then highlight the things that, I've had people say recommendation. I'm like, can you just highlight the key areas that you want me to focus on? Because I don't know, we're very busy. So highlight those specific qualities that you want that letter to address. And if you're getting different letters, you can actually have different people say, can you focus on this? And then the other person focuses on that, so that everybody's highlighting all the different skills. So if you're asking, if I'm asking Patrick, I'm like, Patrick, can you focus your recommendation on this? Makobi, can you focus on this? So that you're getting an all-rounded program. And then give them the specific program that you're applying, the details, the requirements. Because when I do that, I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is a very competitive program. So therefore, let me make sure I do a good a good letter, and then always offer to say, hey, I'm available to meet if you have time. This is my email, this is my text, this is my chat. If you have any questions, I can sit down and have a conversation with you. And then when you're done, please send a thank you letter. For some people, they don't even, it's like, let them know that, you know what, thank you for your recommendation letter. I got into the school. I really appreciate. Because some people just forget, they run away, and then you go back to them 10 years later when you need another recommendation letter. So build those relationships, build those networks, because it will take you a long way.
I think Prof has really nailed what this is really. I'm really passionate about this because I see how our students take it for granted. You know, when they want a letter, like they meet you somewhere. Oh, by the way, can you write me a letter? And you're like, are you serious? Are you taking this? You are not taking this seriously. Okay, I'll just show. I get requests from at least 20 to 30 students every year wanting me to write their recommendation. This is what they'll do. This is how I know a student is serious. A student first is going to write an introductory email just requesting to want to meet with me because this is their intent. So they call it letter of intent. So they send you a letter of intent, and then they ask if you would be willing to do it and if you would be willing to meet with them. Then the next thing is they come to your office with a portfolio, with a folder. That folder is so organized that it outlines the transcript is in there, their statement of purpose is in there, every little thing that you need is in there, and they come written on your name so carefully and put in there. Then they will write notes saying this is the reminder in terms of the dates. So again, they give you at least 1 month's notice. Okay. So it's not like I need it tomorrow. They give you 1 month and they write, and almost every week they send you a polite reminder that, okay, you know, that is how I know this is a serious student. Guess what I'm gonna do writing their letter? It's gonna be an extremely strong letter. But I meet with you, it's like, I want a recommendation letter and I need it tomorrow. So it's really etiquette. Most of it is etiquette. And I think one thing I like with, most of people who have grown here is they have mastered the art so well that they know how to to tailor their things to their needs. I want to challenge you guys as students here or even in Kenya. When is the last time you went to visit your professor, just to go to their office so that they can put a face? Because you will say, I need you to write a letter. I am asking you because you taught me a course 2 years ago. They don't even know you. Guess what? They will reluctantly say yes. And guess what? They'll write a mediocre letter. When they write a mediocre letter, that will work against you, because most of these schools, you waive your right to see. You waive your right to see the recommendation. So you really never know what they submitted. So I just want to challenge you. One thing you should take with utmost seriousness is recommendation letters, because that's the person who is vouching for you. If you deal with them casually, they will also write a casual letter for you. But if you deal with them with like, this is so serious, they will write a very good and strong letter for you. Thank you.
You're muted, Prof.
Oh, sorry. I think there's another question from Jimmy that says, what advice do you have for students who are unsure about which programs to apply to? So the first one is really, like I said, what are your goals and what is your vision? What is it that you want to do? So reflect on your goals, reflect on your career goals. What is your dream? What is your dream job? What is it that you want to do? And then find research on that area, research on those institutions, find a program that is reputable, look at rankings. Also, location is very key. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go to the south? Like I remember when I went to when I completed my master's program in New York, I got into 3 institutions. I got into Columbia, the Ohio State, and North Carolina. I was getting ready to run out of it. It was too cold. I said, I am not going back to no Midwest. Now I'm in Midwest. But I was trying to run as far south as I could. So the location to me was very key. College campus. That's why we say that networking is super key. The college campus, the culture, the community. If I did not, when I came for my interview in Indiana, I was in tears when I walked out of my room, when I checked out of my hotel and walked into a conference in the reception where I met about 10 Kenyan students. That was it for me. I was like, wow, thank you, Makobi, for organizing that. He put together, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at all these Kenyans in the middle of nowhere. So that really, again, the campus, the location, the community, look at the financial support. What funding do they have? What funding opportunities do they have? Do they have any scholarships? Do they have any programs? Also, their structure. There's some programs that are online, that are face-to-face. Is that what you want to do? Do your programs provide flexibility and resources that are offered in that institution, alumni networking and career support? So there's so many things that you really want to look at it. But the main thing is really you. What is it that you want to do? Because it is an investment. Once you get into that program, we have to work very hard. It's an investment, and you have to really give your 101. You can't just go in there half-minded. You have to give your best. Especially for us who are minorities, you have to work very hard to prove yourself. So make sure you're ready, you're prepared, psychologically, mentally, physically, financially, and you know for sure that this is what you want to do. Then go for it.
Thank you, Prof.
Absolutely. That's key. That's key. So I think quickly I wanted to, someone shared something that it's a question I saw from iPhone, whoever that iPhone is what if my research interest doesn't align so well with the faculty members in the department and that I'm interested in? Do I have to change it to fit in? So I do have, and I get these questions from time to time. My quick advice is this. I tell students, and here's an example I'll give just for everybody's as a demonstration. I was passionate about malaria research because I came from Kenya, where in an area where malaria was a big problem. So I thought, okay, I just want to where it says malaria, that's where I want to be. Here's the irony. Graduate school, if it's the right department, okay, which department is relevant with malaria? It's either malaria can be studied whether you are in biology, biochemistry, chemistry, any of these, even public health. Okay, any of these areas can study malaria. The question that you always have to ask yourself is, which techniques do I need to learn? If you can answer that question, you can go to Michigan State and do something in plant biology, and you will still get the set of techniques that you can live there with and still go apply them into a malaria research, maybe for your postdoc or something. So I always tell people, first, get a seat at the table. Get to sit at the table. Once you are at the table, then you gain the skills that you need. Then you can now transfer those skills to anywhere you want. Okay, and I'll give you an example. The skills I learned as a biochemistry PhD, I can do my research in cancer. I can do my research in malaria. I can do my research in anything I want to do because those same skills are transferable. So I advise students not to hang on to a particular thing. Just know that as a doctoral student or as a master's student, you are going to learn skills. try to learn as many skills as possible, and those skills will help transfer wherever research you want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that, and that is very true, Dr. But first of all, like what we've been sharing here is, how did you even end up there? Because what we're sharing with you is research. Look at their university websites, look at their programs, reach out to faculty, attend open house sessions, attend forums online, connect with students, look at publications and faculty achievements within that area, look at the data. So before you get yourself in a situation like that, do your due diligence. If you're already there, it is okay. But then we're doing this session because we want to avoid situations like that where you just accept an admission because you want to go into the PhD program or you want to go into a master's program. So again, if you go back on research, there's all this information is websites. You can look at their websites. You can look at what they're publishing. Like you said, malaria. Click malaria and see who is doing malaria in all those areas before you make such a big decision. Like I said, it is a commitment once you accept, and it's hard. It can be a little difficult to switch from program to program. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Prof. And Doc. I know there was a hand up. I know it's no longer up. Was it Maria? If I'm not wrong. Maria, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm Maria. I know Prof can't remember, but I sit on the board of Kesid. So you're muted.
Not bad. Thank you. Good to see you, Maria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I'm at work. So I'm on the board. I'm the only student, not student, but former student, who's not a professor or a doctor. So sometimes when we get together, it's so intimidating because everybody's a professor, a doctor, and all these things. But I wanted to touch on what Prof. Ochieng was saying. It is very true. I came to the States in 2004. Between my KCSC and coming to the States, I first came for a church conference and I went back having made up my mind that I'm coming back to school here. And so I had the first thing, what Professor Ochieng was saying is have as many skills as possible. So I have 7 languages that I'm fluent on. Arabic, French, all that stuff. So I had a certificate from St. John's Ambulance. I had done Taekwondo. I did everything. So the first thing I came was that I interpreted without papers for the U.S. Embassy, U.S. Army. It's near the school where I was. The second thing is a friend of mine had told me that find schools where nobody knows where it is. North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah. So I live in the state of Idaho. Nobody knows where that is. But Prof and Dr. Mushai and everybody else, they know this. And I've given them my story and how I ended up here. But I ended up here, I did my master's and they retained me. When they retained me, one, I'm a minority. There's 1% Blacks in Idaho. So they don't want you to leave the state because you're bringing so much to them. And when I got to the point where I knew that I'm not just an employee with just a job, JOB, it means just overboard. I needed to be a business owner. They gave me incentives. Guess who I went to back for recommendations? My professors. So I'm back, I'm going back. I didn't have a problem with accommodation because I came to school. One, I was a minority. So I almost got free accommodation. Take advantage of some of the states that have 1%, 2%, 3% Blacks. It's not, there's nothing wrong with that. it's still today, we still have, I see Black people and I go say hello and find out it's a Kenyan. Oh, it's a nurse that was brought by these programs that are bringing nurses. Now there's much more people. When I first came, I was among the first few, and I wanted to go to California. I wanted to go to Seattle, which is like 45-minute flight from where I am. But the incentives they gave me when I did my tax returns, they gave me tax breaks. That has kept me here in this state. So having people like you could talk to, having a rich background of a networking. So anytime I feel like I'm craving to go where Kenyans are, I just book a flight and I leave. It took me 3 years to get my citizenship, and not because I didn't have to wait, it's because there was nobody at the immigration office. So I used my business, which is I ran a home health and hospice business, and it took care of especially people coming from Afghanistan that spoke Arabic, that there was nobody who was doing that. So immediately I was thrown into a business environment. I had never even had a job. I was a student throughout, but the environment pushed me because very few people understood the potential that I had. But I came in this country hungry for an opportunity. All of us know, coming from Kenya and the environment there, I didn't come from a rich family. I came from an average family, but I've made it this far. I'm a single mother today. Raised my children here, both of them. It's not like I don't want to get married, but the stakes are so high for me. You find yourself being like, no, I don't want to. And you're going to get there, students, you're going to get there. Well, after school, there's life, but it depends on where you are and all those things, because you can, even like Professor Ochieng was saying, even inviting your professor, not just going back to his office, even when you have your wedding, you have your children. Those are the pillars in your life that you're proud to go for. Remember, we are miles and miles away from home. So that professor, that friend, that Makobi guy, God bless his heart, they become family, you know. And then lastly, like Professor was saying, look at the websites. Look, I've worked with some students that get to America and find out that the college they were coming to has been blacklisted by the government. It's not a genuine college. It's there to siphon money from colleges. And so do your homework as an international student. I hope that helps somebody.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's nice to meet you virtually. Go ahead, Prof. Go ahead.
I was just saying thank you, Maria. Thank you. We appreciate you. I'm going to come visit you soon. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording so people can ask their questions. I want people to feel free to ask questions. I'll stop the recording.
Are there any questions?
That said, let me